Okay, guys, how's it going? My name is Jose Marquez, and this is 10 tips, 10 tips to get straight A's as a full time engineering student. These tips are, I wrote them, I got them from Student Academic Success Center, and I put them into practice throughout my time as a UC Davis student. I am now currently an alumni. I currently work as an environmental engineer for Geosyntec Consultants. And so I thought it would be a good idea for me to share these tips with those fellow students currently going to school and for future generations that will go through the UC Davis engineering journey. So without further ado, here are my 10 tips as a full-time engineering student. So tip number 1, here we go. Go to class. I can't express how many people would skip class thinking they can get a good grade by not going to class. But it's just that's just a fundamental thing in order for you to learn. I'll tell you why. The professor will only test you on what he has covered in class, he or she has covered in class. If you look at a physics book, if you look at a fluid dynamics book, a chemistry book, whatever it is, they're like this thick. And so you're not going to be able to go and learn this book in 10 weeks, which is a quarter. That's how long a quarter is, 10 weeks. And so the professor only picks and chooses the most important materials from that book. And that is what he teaches you. That is what she teaches you. And that is what you will be tested on. And the professor will not test you on anything else other than what they have gone over in class. So in the long run, it saves you time. You don't have to study extra material that was not covered in class, and it just saves you time. And time in college is precious. It's ideal. You need time in college. Okay, so that's my tip number 1. Go to class. Tip number 2 would be to sit in the front 3 rows of the classroom. And so this doesn't apply to people going to online school right now because of COVID, but eventually, if once everything gets good and people and students start going back into class, into that 500 student lecture hall, this will apply for you. So sit in the front 3 rows of the lecture hall. Why? When you sit in the front 3 rows, it allows you to fully focus onto what the professor is saying. It's so easy to get distracted when you're sitting in the back of the class, and it's so easy for you to miss a key word or a key phrase that the professor has said. But when you sit in the first 3 rows, it's just so easy to engage. It's so easy to just focus and pay attention to everything the professor says. I've been in the front, I've been in the back. I was always aiming for the front 3 rows. I was always in the first row, and that's how I got my straight A's. No distractions. I was easy. It's so easy for a person sitting in the back to get distracted by just people in front of them. Maybe just that one person that gets up in the middle of class to go to the restroom or something. And in that split 10 seconds, you lose a key phrase or key information that the professor has said, and now you're lost in lecture, especially in those lectures that are just dense in technical material. So that's my tip number 2. Sit in the front 3 rows of the class. Tip number 3, ask questions. The only dumb question is the one that is not asked. Be brave, be brave. Ask if you don't know something, just raise your hand, call out the professor's name, do something, ask the question. I was always that one student in class that would always ask questions. For every lecture that I was in, I asked at least 3 questions. Yes, I was the annoying guy, blah, 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 but I got my straight A's. And that's because number 1, I always came out of the classroom without any doubts in my mind. I knew exactly what the professor was saying. I knew his ideas, what he was trying to convey to the class. And so it made it easier for me the next day or during midterm season, because that question that I had, I asked it during the lecture, and I got to understand it there, and I wasn't cramming trying to understand it during the midterm. Another thing that happens when you ask questions during class is that this allows you to stay engaged with the lecture. So these lectures can range from like 30, no, from an hour to an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours. But when you're asking questions throughout the lecture, it keeps you engaged. It's just a natural tendency. It keeps you engaged with the class, with the lecture, with the material. And yeah, you don't get distracted. You don't lose information, and therefore helps you out. Tip number 4 would be to prepare before and prepare after class. So, how do you prepare before class? So, you prepare by reviewing the lecture slides that the professor will go over. Most of the times, they email them to you before class. They mostly 90% of the time give you a schedule of what they will be covering and what day. And so, number 1, just review the lecture slides if they have any. Number 2, preview / skim the lecture material before the actual class. And this will just kind of prime your brain of any of just the concepts of the ideas that the professor will go over. And it just makes it easier for your brain when it's listening to it again a second time than just for the first time. Okay, so that's before class. But then after class, a key moment is to review your notes, review the lecture after it has happened. It was so pivotal to me when I was there at UC Davis. It's so pivotal because reviewing your lecture notes or the lecture after it has gone, it just cements the concepts, the ideas into your brain. It holds, it's a longer retention time when you review it. And so I've been in instances, so many midterms where I didn't even study that topic that the professor that the question was asking, but because I had reviewed my notes, I was able to answer that question correctly, if that makes sense. Okay. Tip number 5, study in the library. Man, that's a big one right there. A lot of students, a lot of people during my time thought they can get away with studying in their dorms or studying in their apartment or studying in the coho, which is basically like our cafeteria. But what ends up happening is that these places have a lot of distractions. A lot of people walk by. You sometimes run into friends. And so if you're trying to fully understand thermodynamics or heat transfer, and a friend passes by, you're going to be so focused, and all of a sudden, boom, you're going to get distracted. You're going to lose your train of thought. So what helped me was studying in the library in a distraction-free zone. I used to study in the cubicles, in the library cubicles. That was my go-to, honestly. And I kind of just figured over time that 1 hour fully focused in the library is about the same. You get the same amount of productivity if you were to spend 3 to 4 hours in the coho or outside of the library. So tip number 6 would be keep a 3-month calendar in front of you always. I still do it to this day, and it's very efficient, very productive. And once you keep that 3-month calendar in front of you, which is the length of the quarter, I highly suggest you need to write down your midterm dates on there, and you need to write down your final dates on there. And that just kind of gives you a goal to work towards. or every time you sit down to study, or every time you sit down at your home office, wherever your office is, you always have an idea of when the midterm is, when the final is, so it doesn't catch you by surprise. There's no excuses. You prepare for the midterm ahead of time. Tip number 7 would be to write down your weekly assignments. So you're going to probably be in 4 to 5 classes every quarter, and every class will have an assignment due every week, whether it be a lab, just homework problems, whatever it is, you're going to have an assignment for every class. And so when you're trying to juggle 4 to 5 classes, it's so hard to keep everything in your mind. So write it down on a sticky note, write it down. And then every time you accomplish it, you just check it off. This will allow you to just stay on top of your things, because a lot of times things don't go as you plan, or a routine changes. But as long as you have your to-do list and you're disciplined enough to just knock out the tasks, you will stay on top of things. Oh, one other thing about that, you got to prioritize your tasks. So definitely do the tasks that are due the soonest, and then just work from there. Tip number 8 would be to wake up early. The early bird definitely gets the worm with this scenario. When you wake up early, your mind is so productive the first few hours of your day. And so I would get 8 a.m. classes. I loved 8 a.m. classes. 99% of students hate 8 a.m. classes, but I love them. I love them because, first of all, I was a commuting student. So I commuted from Sacramento to Davis, which was like a 30-minute commute without traffic, and like a 1-hour commute with traffic. So I woke up early. I beat traffic in the morning. I got to campus. There was so much parking space available because nobody wakes up in the morning. And so it was just so efficient. I beat traffic. I got a parking space. I went to class, and I got out of class at 9 a.m. with the whole day ahead of me to either get my work done, study, whatever I had to do. Okay, where was I at here? Okay, where was I at? Sorry, my camera died on me. Wake up early. You won't regret it. Highly productive. And I'm not gonna lie. Waking up early sucks as a college student. You know, you want to socialize, you want to be out and about, you want to go to parties. But I mean, you got to be smart with it. You know, if you have a midterm coming up in a week, you know, stay in and study, get your sleep, build that routine, so when the midterm comes, you're ready. Okay. Tip number 9. Be proactive. You have the power to change the course of your life. You control what you want to do, who you want to be. And so things are not going to land in front of you. Be proactive. Think ahead. You know something's going to happen. Speak up about it. Ask questions. Prepare for it. That's tip number 9. That's where I'm going to leave it. Tip number 10, last but not least, is it takes time. It takes time to get straight A's. It takes time to get the hang of college, get the rhythm of things. It took me up until my 4th year where I finally got straight A's in a quarter. My first years, I struggled a lot. I would get C's in class, and I would get so frustrated at my roommates, at my friends that would get A's, and they would barely put in the work. And so I was just so frustrated because I didn't understand. I didn't get how they were succeeding and I was not. And so it took time. It took trial and error. It took just experience to get to where I was at and really achieving straight A's. Don't give up, you know. You're probably going to get a test back and you're going to flunk it, or you're going to get a grade that's not good. But learn from that, see what you missed, learn how to improve for the next time, prepare, and you'll do good. You'll do good eventually with time. So yeah, that's my story. That's how I achieved my straight A's my fourth year. No, my last year in college. Sorry. And it was the busiest year for me. Busiest year in college for me. I was doing fraternity business. I was commuting. I had my senior design project, and it was so busy. I still managed though, with these tips being the core of my habits. And with that being said, those are my 10 tips. Hope you liked this video. If you found it helpful, give it a thumbs up. Doesn't hurt. I don't usually post stuff like this on my channel, but if you like this type of channel, if you like this type of material, subscribe. Tell me, and I'll make more of this. Anyways, that's it. Yeah, see you in the next one, guys. Yeah, that was so cheesy. All right, that was it, guys. All right, later.